Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday market snapshot for the Ottawa real estate market for Monday, May 20th, 2024. Today is a holiday Monday here, and so I hope that you're enjoying the time off. Hopefully, you got time off and enjoying this beautiful summer weather. Typically, the May long weekend is the start of the summer season or the kickoff, but definitely this weekend we're seeing full on summer weather. So I hope you're enjoying it. My name is Annalie Rice. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, Ontario, and every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market. Let's go. Okay, so first off, citywide, we can see that we have more active listings. Typically, before a long weekend, there is a bit of a decrease in the number of new listings, just because people will not want to list right before a long weekend. But if this is a decrease, then this might be a sign of what's to come next week. And I do think next week we're going to have a whole lot more new listings. So 133 more new listings, more active listings this week, mostly in the detached market across property types. The sales this week were also up. That's not totally unexpected because a lot of people want to get the conditions off their purchases before the long weekend so they can sort of celebrate or have that out of the way before a long weekend. So slight increase, still below that 300 level. And it was steady for condos, slightly up for detached, and slightly down for townhomes. Okay, so on this chart, we see the inventory breakdown. It's all, the black line is the overall inventory, all properties that are on the market in any form there. The green is the active inventory, and we can see that it is still climbing very steadily, quite a steep climb. And then we've got the sales, firm sales this last week in red, and then the conditional sales, which is almost identical there to the firm sales in the orange. So I've shifted those dashed lines to show you how our numbers compare to last year. And we can see that last year we had 1,506 active listings, and this year we're sitting at 2,561. So it's 70% more listings on the market right now than what we had this time last year. Now, if we look at the sales from last year, that was the peak number of sales in any week last year, and it was at 349, I believe it was. And this year we're sitting just at 296, so just shy of 50 less. So if you add up like sort of the 3 weeks we've had in May, those were the three strong, very strong weeks last year. We actually have 14% fewer sales in the first 3 weeks of May this year. So inventory is high. It's much, much higher than it was last year when there was a bit of a crunch, and the sales are a little bit lower than what we saw last year. Okay, so let's look at the new listings. So this week we had 587 properties that were listed on the MLS, on the market. 116 of those were relisted properties. That represented 20%, and 471 were properties that were new to the market. So that's 80%. Those ratios have stayed the same pretty consistently throughout the spring. It did surprise me how, although there was a slight dip in the number of new listings, you can see the slight dip in the blue line there from last week. It did surprise me that we had so many new listings. So if you look back to the peak of listings last year, you see the big drop where it actually crosses with the red line there, the sales. That was the May long weekend, the week going into the May long weekend last year. And it's normal to have this huge drop right before long weekends because people don't like to list their homes right before a long weekend. They don't want to be having people come through their homes on long weekends or have open houses on long weekends. So it was really kind of surprising that we didn't have that huge drop this year. So it's either that people just want to get their homes on the market, the sooner the better, or it's possible that there are just so many more new listings that might be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and this is going to continue to climb. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so next up, we'll look at the sales. We had 296 sales this past week. 15% of the sales were with no conditions. So that's a little bit of a drop. We were sort of sitting at that 2019, 18, and so a little bit of a drop. Now that could be, again, going into a long weekend, fewer listings, who knows. We'll see if it jumps back up this next week. And we had 31% of the sales were at or above the listed price, the last listed price. And again, that's a slight drop from what we saw the last 3 or 4 weeks there. When we break it down into the sales that happened within the last 7 days, we had 49 properties. That was 17% of the sales. That also was a little bit of a drop. And of those properties that sold within the last 7 days, 41% of those sold with no conditions, and 80% of those sold at or above asking price. When we look at the ones that sold within 30 days, 67%, so 67% of the sales happened within 30 days of on the market. That was 197 properties. And then 17% of those sold with no conditions, and 43% at or above asking price, which is still fairly high. The next thing I'll look at here is just a little bit more detail on the at or above asking price. So this week we had 92 homes that sold at or above the asking price. 44 of those sold at asking and up to 1% over the asking price, so very close to the asking price. That was 48% of those properties. And 34 sold between 1 and 5% above asking price. That was 37% of the properties. 13 homes sold for more than 5% of the asking price. For the highest percentage over the asking price, it was 22% over asking price, and it was also the same property that had the highest dollar value over the asking price. It was $215,100 over asking price. In that case, it was a home that was listed at $999,999, and it sold for $1,215,000. In this case, it was a house that was in sort of an older, quite a popular area. I think perhaps they knew they were under listing, and a lot of people list at like $999 just to be under that $1 million mark. I don't know if they expected to sell for that much over, or if maybe they were expecting in the closer to the 1.1, who knows, but somebody really wanted that house to pay that much over. Okay, so let's zoom in and see what's happening in the different areas of the city. So first off, in the central urban region, we see that the active inventory climbed across property types, mostly in the detached and a few condos. And the sales were up for detached, but actually down for condos and towns. In Canada and Stittsville, we see that the active inventory climbed for detached and towns and was down slightly for condos. Sales were up also just for detached and towns and slightly down for condos. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, a slight increase in all property types for active inventory, quite a bit of a jump for detached, and sales were actually up across property types, though just slightly for detached and towns. Remember last week there were 0 condos that sold in Barrhaven and Riverside South, so a jump of 6 this week. And in Orleans, a slight increase for detached and towns inventory and slight decrease for condos. And for sales, their sales were actually down across property types this last week. Here I've got the full data for all the different areas. This is for the detached homes and townhomes and condos. Okay, so it's a bit of a quick update this week. Not a whole lot happening just because it was heading into a long weekend. What I expect for this next week, I expect inventory to continue to climb. A lot of people will probably have put their properties on the market just following the long weekend. And sales might be a little bit slower just because we're kind of missing a day with the long weekend here. But we'll see. And I hope you have a fantastic week and enjoying this nice summery weather.